See, my issue with, Dr. Claude Anderson with this video, he's, painting the picture that, American Indians are the Asiatics that came over the Bering Strait with the straight hair and Asiatic features that's similar to, Chinese people, Japanese people, and Koreans. But that's not the case, and we already know that. We know that we are the Paleo Indians or the Paleo Americans, the mound builders, who had built the mounds before the Native Americans got here. But what they're trying to paint is that all black people, or so-called black people, that's in the United States and throughout the Americas, they're trying to make it seem as though all people that was classified as black, that they are of African descent, and that's not the case. Because the majority of the people that was reclassified as black are American Indians or Paleo Indians. Okay? And so that's the issue that I have with this particular video. And I'm about to go ahead and play it for you guys.
Some food when necessary. We'll give them some arms and ammunition, and we'll quit harassing them and killing them. And that was the first treaty. And every treaty from the 1516 treaty up until the 1860s all had inclusions that asked Indians to support slavery and to maintain slavery, and that they would be willing to pay them. It would pay them, Dr. Watkins, $25 for every runaway slave they brought back to the white master in the South. $25. And they said, if you can't bring back a slave alive, bring him back with his scalp and ears attached, we'll give you $20. And also, if you're catching them running away, make sure that you still fear in them. So you hear people talking about, I think someone mentioned recently about Kyle West, somebody was saying about that blacks volunteered to stay in slavery. They weren't volunteering to stay in slavery and stay on those plantations. Nobody ever tells you one of the biggest reasons that black folk did not escape from slavery.
In the late 1800s, there was something called the Dawes Rolls, which was basically a census that made records of people's ethnic backgrounds in order to determine which Native American tribes would get certain land allotments and other benefits. After slavery, many black people were associated with some of these tribes by bloodline, through marriage, through adoption, and even servitude. And because they were associated with these tribes, many black people were entitled to some of these benefits. The government did not want blacks to get these benefits, so they created a separate Freedmen's list specifically for black people. They also started to list any full-blooded Native American who had African features as black because they didn't want them getting those benefits either. At the same time, they allowed white citizens to come in and pay money under the table to be listed as part Native American.
1895, 1896, when a lot of the whites found out the benefits that these blacks are going to be entitled to, a lot of whites went to the Dawes Commission and say, look, why don't you put my name on there? They said, but you're not an Indian. So that's what they said, well, I'll give you $5. So the rule got around, the policy got around that for $5 that a white could put his name on the Dawes rolls and be called himself an Indian.
Okay, now this is on Dr. Claude Anderson's website, and which is the Harvest Institute, and this was published on September 11, 2013. Harvest Institute, Freedmen, Federation lawsuits in 1866, Indian Treaty. It says it is a well-kept secret that institutional slavery could not have occurred or existed in America without the support of the 5 civilized Indian tribes, Cherokee, Seminole, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Creek, who were slaveholders, traders, chasers, and who signed agreements with and fought with the Southern Confederacy during the Civil War to maintain blacks. And we know that most of those blacks were Paleo Indians, which is our people, and then some of them were African people. It says in slavery, it says even after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Constitutional Amendment, and the end of the Civil War in 1865, Indian tribes continued to hold blacks, which we already know who those blacks are, as slaves. The Indian tribes refused to free their slaves, arguing that tribes were sovereign nations and that they had the right to hold blacks as property, and refusing to free their black slaves and allying with Southern rebels. The 5 tribes played into the hands of European immigrants and the government that wanted westward expansion. When the tribes took up arms against the United States in the Civil War, they violated all the previous treaties and therefore lost their territorial properties and land claims. The United States government had given amnesty to the Southern Johnny Rebs. The federal government also offered amnesty to the 5 civilized tribes in the form of the 1866 Indian treaties, which remain the basis upon which the government has provided preferential benefits to Indians for the last 150 years. The 1866 treaties require Indian tribes to free their black slaves and grant free black Indians and their descendants the full tribal membership and voting rights in the matters pertaining to the tribes. The treaties mandated that the federal government and tribes provide black freedmen and black Indians with no less than 150 acres of land, $160 equal share in all government provided material benefits, free schooling, reservation resources, and to be treated in all matters similar to the way of non-black members of the tribes. Now, my thing is, okay, he's saying a lot of black, and we already know black is a slave status that goes back to the Christian black codes. And so we know our ancestors, they are not blacks. And so that's where, Dr. Claude Anderson, he is wrong about that big time. He should have just said straight up American Indians, Paleo Indians. He could have said that instead of saying black Indians. That would have made, more sense. And it would have been way more accurate. But anyway, so it says here, so I'm going to skip down. It says, in 1941, the United States government provided guidance to tribes on how to redefine Indian in a way that excluded black freedmen and black Indians. It says, the government has continually narrowed its sphere of enforcement and has ignored its fiduciary responsibilities to the black freedmen and black Indians as defined in those treaties. It is that failure that is the basis of the Harvest Institute Freedmen Federation lawsuit. Okay, so then it goes on to say, talks about the Cobell and Salazar case and how that was settled out of court. And how, and how the so-called black Indians, which is our people, how, they had this lawsuit. But I feel like if they're going to use those terms, black Indians, black freedmen, then they're totally off the mark, because that's not what the treaties say. They don't mention black at all in those treaties. Instead, what they mention is Negro and Indians.